Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. As I promised in the previous video, episode number 6 I think, I'm going to show you how I join my leaders to my braided lines using a knot called the PR knot, and it's the only knot that I personally use for joining mono to braid. To do this knot, naturally we need leader material and we need this bobbin. Now these are special bobbins. They have a nice bit of weight to them because the spool on the bobbin is made of brass, and that's what gives it the weight. And they also have this adjustment wheel at the end, and that wheel is to adjust the friction of the braid rolling off the brass spool. So the tighter I make the wheel, the harder it will be for the braid to come off the wheel. The friction depends on what diameter braid we're using. So the thinner that you braid, the less friction you will need, but not too loose, else you won't have a nice tight whipping of your braid onto your leader material. So the first thing we do is take our braided line coming from our reel and feed it through the nozzle of the bobbin. There's a nozzle at the end with a hole through it. So we have to feed our braid through the nozzle until it comes out the other end. And then we take the end of the braid and we trap the braid in between the two rubber O-rings that come with the machine, that are on the machine. So once we've trapped the braid, we then grab the brass spool and we start spinning it and wrapping some braid onto the brass spool. And as a general rule, I put around 10 wraps around the spool. So obviously I'll need something like 20 times of 180-degree turns. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Count to 20. And that gives you around 10 wraps of your braid onto the brass spool. So we then grab hold of our leader material. We give ourselves plenty of tag end, as we're going to need to grab hold of that in a minute. We grab our braid with the bobbin dangling from it, and then we overlap the braid onto the leader, and the length of the dangle underneath the leader will give you more or less the length of the knot. So if you think that's too long a knot, all you do is move the bobbin up closer to your leader. And if you want to make it longer, all you do is loosen your grip of the braid through your hand, and the weight of the bobbin will make it go down, giving you a longer drop down to give you a longer knot. So as a general rule, I go with around 1.5 inches. That's plenty for me. In my experience, that's a generally good length knot for most types of fishing. The only time I make this knot any longer is if it's for big game fishing equipment. For example, joining long lengths of top shot mono onto your braid on a big trolling multiplier. But for general beach casting or spinning, around 1.5 inches of dangle is enough. And then we simply start rotating the bobbin downwards until the bobbin nozzle touches our leader, as it has done now. As you can see, it's now touching our leader. Then all we do is put our thumb and forefinger at the end of the nozzle there and hold everything horizontally and nice and tight. So I'm holding the leader tight in my left hand and the tag end of the leader with the braid overlapping it tight in my right hand. And then I simply start spinning the bobbin in the horizontal position like so until we've got 2 or 3 wraps back the other way on top of the existing wraps that we just did by spiraling the bobbin down. So once that I'm happy that I've started with my overlaps the other way, I now in one motion carry on spinning the bobbin in the air, but by holding it vertically upwards. So I have to now go vertically upwards, holding everything tight, and just spin the bobbin in the air, and you can see how tightly it's wrapping back down till you get your required length of whipping. I can now hold it at the end of all those whips, grab my bobbin and just pull it off. And to stop these coils unwrapping, all I need now is 1/2 hitch over both the leader and the braid. So once I pull that tight, my wraps cannot come undone. I hope you can see that there. If I put my thumb behind it, is it in focus? Okay. So, believe it or not, that knot will never come undone with just simply doing 1/2 hitch over both the leader and the braid. So there's no way that will come undone. Okay, I'm pulling as hard as I dare on it without cutting through my fingers. So in theory, that now is the strongest knot between my braid and the leader, but I need to do a couple of more things to it so it doesn't come undone during the cast. We obviously do several casts, so I need to secure this end so it never comes undone. For the strength of it, this knot is already holding, but due to friction of the knot coming through the guides, we don't want that simple 1/2 hitch to come undone, so we have to do a couple of more things. And those things are, we first trim the excess tag of our leader, and I normally trim it and leave around 1.5 millimeters of leader at the end there. And the reason I do that, because it allows me to do 4 or 5 more 1/2 hitches until I cover. Now I'm going to have to sit on the table for this one so you guys can see it. So that I've just done another 1/2 hitch. So I'm going to continue with a few more until the end of the leader completely disappears. As you can see, I still have about 1 mil left. So I'm going to continue with some more half hitches. Couple more. I think I can fit one more in there. And that's our leader completely hidden underneath our half hitches. So I can now come back to the shot. And what I like to do is continue with some half hitches, but this time braid on braid. And that gives me a little bit of stiffness after the overlap of the braid and leader by making the union, the joint at the end here, a little bit stiffer and a little bit the same thickness as the rest of the knot. So I continue by putting another 5 or 6 half hitches braid on braid. And now to stop all these half hitches at the end from getting undone, all we need to do is a full hitch. So for that, we make ourselves a big loop and we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is my lucky number. And then I simply hold the braid tag end against the knot there, and then hold on to the big loop that we've just created and start unwrapping these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I've done there, because I had the 6 wraps up somewhere here on the loop, I have, by unwrapping it, I have brought these 6 wraps all the way down, butting up to our knot, which means pulling this excess braid now underneath those 6 wraps becomes much easier. If you do it the other way, then you're forever having to pull up and down on those 6 wraps to get them to tighten up. Whereas by unwrapping 6 times after you're 6 times through the loop, it bunches up the coils nice and tight down here, which makes slipping that excess loop of braid underneath those wraps so much simpler. And as you can see, I don't really need to do anything else. That is nicely closed without me tugging up and down to get them to close down. So this is a nice trick. So all I have to do now is trim the excess braid, taking care to not cut through your main line. And there we have, put my thumb behind so it's in focus, and there we have the strongest knot for joining braided line to mono. Not only the strongest knot, but also the thinnest knot, and I'm going to explain the reason for that. Obviously, if we want to use any different kind of knot for joining braided line to mono, we have to double our leader line. So for example, the Albright knot, lots of people use the Albright knot to join braided line to mono, but to actually do the Albright knot, you have to create a loop at the end of your mono, feed your braided line through the loop, wrap it round in both directions 4 or 5 times up, 4 or 5 times down, and then put the braided line back through the loop and tighten everything up. But automatically your knot then ends up being twice the thickness of your leader because we've doubled the line over. If we use another knot as an example, Slim Beauty, or using a figure of 8 knot on your leader material and then doing 6 or 7 time full hitch knot of your braid onto your leader, then pulling the 2 knots against each other, that also means that you've made the diameter of your leader material twice as big as it originally starts at. As you can see with the PR knot, I didn't double over my leader material, my leader line. I left it a singular piece of leader, and all I've done instead is whipped my braided line on top of my leader. And with the braid being a third or sometimes a quarter of the diameter of your leader material, naturally by whipping the braid on top of the single diameter leader makes this area here a much slimmer diameter. And it's also a non-pivoted joint of braided line to mono. As you can see, the braid follows through and it sits perfectly in line with the leader, which gives us less headaches on casts because it comes flying through the guides in a straight line much better than other knots which actually have a bulbous joint or union, which can cause some problems. So hopefully the video demonstrates the knot to you guys in a clear fashion. I've done my best to make it as clear as possible. I've slowed right down in doing it for the sake of the video. Obviously when you get the hang of it and you start doing knots using the bobbin for all your gear, after a while it becomes second nature and you can do this knot very quickly. Especially as you're not having to explain the process step by step. And since I'm doing this video and while I'm at it, I might as well say it in case there are people watching who don't really know what length of leader to put on their rods. As a general rule, I go with make sure the knot goes through your guides and ends up on the spool of your reel. So once it lays on your spool, I then count 5 wraps onto my spool with the leader material. So 5 360-degree rotation of your rotor on your reel, not 5 full turns of the handle, but the actual rotor. So I do that by remembering where the position of the roller guide is on the bail arm, and I do a full turn till it comes back to that same position. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then the length of the rod, so the leader continuing through the guides of the rod and coming out of the tip, and then I allow some extra hanging down from the tip of the rod, and that extra all depends on the position of your casts. So I generally do an overhang of between 2 and 2.5 foot long, because by the time my rig is attached to that, even for off the ground casts, that's enough of a drop down of our leader from the rod tip. So that covers everything for this video. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, drop me a comment below. If you want to know more about the bobbin, again, drop me a comment. If you want to know some more about the line that I use, again, just feel free to comment or message me privately, and I'm more than happy to help you guys out. If you're getting something out of the videos on the channel, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Give it a thumbs up and share it if you think that you have friends or colleagues who would appreciate the videos. So until next time, guys, I wish you all tight lines, even though it's difficult at the moment as we're all in lockdown, but I'm pretty sure pretty soon we'll all be able to get out there and just do what we love doing best, which is fishing. Tight lines, and until the next video.